It comes and goes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. This is your host, Martini, along with host Becky McNattin. We're glad to have you listening as we live and share stories of mental health.
I have been looking forward to our show today all week because it's an interesting spin on a topic I'm deeply passionate about, Tara. We are going to be exploring today the concept of selective empathy. And I was recently talking to a family member of mine who said, Becky, you need to do a show on selective empathy. I feel like our world is crumbling because we lack the ability to practice empathy in the ways it was meant to be practiced. Not from empathizing because of agreement, but empathizing because of humanness.
Okay.
My family member said this.
Hello, human who just came up with a really powerful quote.
Yeah, not empathizing because of agreement, but empathizing because of humanness. And wow, I was stunned by the statement. First, because I am very lucky to be related to some cool people who highlight meaningful topics for discussion. Second, because the words selective and empathy are almost paradoxical to me. Although I know they go hand in hand, I got myself thinking, though, how often is empathy selective? Are we even offering empathy if we have to agree or align with someone first? And this is part of how we are able to dehumanize others, I think, because we say to ourselves, if I can't offer empathy, you must be lesser. But we create circumstances where we only provide empathy to people who resonate with our beliefs or values. Jaw drop, right?
Mind blowing. Yep.
And as a massive supporter of the concept of empathy, I started thinking, what happens when empathy is picked and chosen for only when we feel like it's worthy? What happens?
Phenomenal.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it goes back to one, I love that we're introducing the audience to a concept that I think not a lot of people are familiar with.
Yes.
I remember discussing this topic with you at our live show during Pride weekend. And we talked about, true empathy and what it is. And when we looked at radical empathy, I ended with a question about, but isn't true radical empathy when you are in front of someone who you don't align morals and values and whatever, and having the capacity to have empathy for that human?
Yeah.
And that's what this reminds me of, is can we do it? And I think a lot of us take for granted, we just assume, oh, we're an empathetic person. Well, but really, are we being selective in who we are empathetic toward?
Right. And do I have to agree with you about something, or do you have to align with the way I see things in order for me to offer that to you? Behavioral, psychological, and neural studies all demonstrate that empathy is selective.
Oh my gosh.
Depending on circumstances, and particularly the moral characteristics of who we might be offering empathy to. And we're going to get into this today. So it's likely part of being human. Totally get that. Our own values are interwoven throughout all of life and what we deem as moral. So you and I aren't saying at all that people need to have empathy 100% of the time.
Right.
But I also think that too much selectivity with empathy causes division and othering. And I think it has an impact on relational wellness, definitely meaningful connection. What are your thoughts, Tara?
Emotional or relational wellness, and how all the way to how a society functions, right? It's the idea of now listening to you as we're doing this first segment. I'm like, wait, is really that concept of just empathy almost too easy then? Right? Are we taking the easy way out? We're just empathizing with people that align with our values and morals and viewpoints. But what's true empathy when we do that with someone who's, standing there feeling otherwise?
And might be different from the way we see things or how we feel about something. And this could be a person who we're close to. This could be a neighbor, people in our world. It's such an interesting topic that we're going to deep dive into. Right now, we're going to take a short commercial break, but stay tuned as we talk through more about what selective empathy is, because for some people, this might be a new topic. Thank you for listening to Feels Out Loud. We will be back in just a moment.
Never need help from nobody else. All you got to do now Nothing to lose. In a world full of strangers, you don't know who to trust. All you see is danger, trying to find what you lost.
Welcome back to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. I am Tara Martini, along with Becky McNattin. Let's dive right back into our fascinating discussion about when empathy becomes selective.
Yeah, and empathy, everyone refers to the process of understanding and sharing the feelings of others. You and I are big on empathy, Tara.
Huge.
We value it deeply, but I know about myself that values are easy to uphold, my value of empathy, when they're easy to uphold. It isn't hard until it's challenged. And you talked about this in the last segment. Right. I think I'm one who expresses empathy pretty freely and openly, but I know this has been a struggle for me in the last several years, particularly the last year. I know it has. And so I would surmise that some of our listeners out there might be also resonating with this idea of selective empathy. I want everyone to think about that classic movie where the hero experiences pain and we all feel badly for them.
Of course.
They're the one we're rooting for, the one we want fantastic things to happen to, but the villain seems to get whatever they want. They are the ones that get ahead. And we find ourselves like deeply upset about the people who can't figure this out.
Well, and it's the notion of, so then finally when the villain has life has completely fractured, we celebrate the fact that, yay, his or her life is miserable.
Yes.
We don't feel badly for them all.
Right.
As they're losing everything, which is, okay, if we really analyze that, are we truly empathetic then? It's a great example of being selective.
Exactly. So tell us how it happens, Tara.
Well, so this experience plays out in our daily lives all the time. Hopefully in much less intense ways than what we just talked about.
Yes.
We as humans appreciate morality, and we offer support to people who uphold values similar to us, which we get. But when does this process of us only offering empathy to people affect us?
Yes. Yeah, because, to go back on that hero experience, this experience plays out daily in our daily lives, all the time in our daily lives, where we're seeing, although in a much less intense way, we're seeing that hero and villain thing. And we as humans appreciate the morality of those heroes. And we love to support people who uphold our values similar to us.
Right.
But that process of selective empathy can affect us. Selective empathy is that tendency to feel compassion, connection, and understanding for specific individuals or groups while dismissing the suffering for others who we would think of as the villain.
Right.
So that's why we're thinking of this. And it leads to that imbalanced response or application of kindness towards specific people. So when you're talking about that in-group and out-group, that's how it's happening.
Right. And it's the notion of, if at simplest terms, it's labels we're putting on humans, right? It's good guy, bad guy, evil, good, where we all of a sudden lose our humanness when we're looking at like the evil or bad guy. It's like we're not seeing them as human, we're seeing them as the label, where things need to change so that we see them as the human.
Right. And has so much to do with relatability. How we identify, as you said, with the good or the bad people, with certain people, has a big influence how easy it will be for us to offer empathy to them.
Right. Yeah.
And selective empathy, definitely, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, as a societal level, can be used to justify apathy towards certain groups of people, even reinforcing systemic inequality or inequity. And we had an interesting discussion with our coworkers recently about why selective empathy is a problem right now. And listeners, you might even be thinking about in your own lives, how is selective empathy, all of a sudden now you're thinking of the term, how is it showing up in your daily lived experiences where maybe even you are saying, as we're sort of calling ourselves out too, oh, I'm only offering it to people who I kind of agree with or who see things the way that I see them. So we talked about this at work recently, and a couple of concepts came up. Things like, well, with selective empathy, we aren't challenged to see things in a new or different way. Maybe we aren't even engaging with one another at all. I've started doing that. How we story people, how we story people literally starts to be our own story with no information about them even weighing in.
Right.
Because we aren't getting their perspective.
Right.
We aren't seeking to understand the world from their view. And one of our coworkers said it's a safety mechanism to not explore the other sides of a situation or issue. What are your thoughts about that, Tara?
I think that's such a good point there, in that, one, I think the idea of selective empathy, we're seeing this play out so much in our society, like you said. And I think one of the big, well, why are these examples of why it's a problem right now is just the idea of we just don't engage or look at the other side of the issue or situation when it involves something that we feel so deeply or passionate about.
Sure.
So I don't need to know the other side because I already have filled in all the blanks.
Yes. And sometimes probably it comes from a spot of, and the way I see it is the right way to see it.
Yep.
Well, tell us about some signs of selective empathy.
Yes. So here are some signs, and this is a good time for audience to be reflective. Let's look at, so you feel intensely for some people, but disconnected from others. Maybe
Well said.
some people's struggles don't bother you.
Yeah.
Which that right there is a huge call out as well, of like, whoa, like just saying the words out loud. Maybe some people's struggles don't bother you. If we're really authentic and true to ourselves, like how do we respond to that comment?
Yep.
Another one is you care only about issues that directly affect you.
Yeah.
Not big picture or societal. You have a hard time understanding the experience of people outside your group. This could be social, political, work, community group.
Yeah.
However you identify group.
Any group, any role in your life even.
Yep. And lastly, you may blame people who don't fit into your in-group. Those people that you have the shared beliefs and values. And we really don't, we blame those people for hardships they experience. Well, it didn't happen to them. They did something to make it happen. Where if we look at our in-group, something happened to them.
Yeah.
And there's where we have the empathy.
Yeah.
We're just so likely to do that.
Yeah.
And that's a huge difference. Huge difference.
And we're talking about things that this is really hard to put into practice when we know that I definitely have selective empathy.
Yeah.
I definitely have an easier time offering empathy to people who I resonate with.
Which is natural. It's a human thing.
I think that is natural, especially if when we talk about values and morals, if they're living in a way that aligns with how I also believe people should live.
Right.
That is going to be a lot easier for me to offer empathy. Realizing as you're even listing off all of these things, like I do that.
I 100% do this. And looking at, ones that it's sticking with me longer is just that idea of how often we do blame others for their experiences versus having empathy for the situation that they were placed in. And thinking of it just historically too, without going into any details, just thinking how that's evolved over time in our country.
Yeah.
How easily we do that.
Yep. And the impact to mental health then. That we could probably make a pretty significant list of the impacts to mental health, but some things like it's socially isolating to only align or use selective empathy so much that we are now only integrating with people who are like us or exactly like us. Definitely an emotional detachment, because we do have to disconnect from the experience of other people in order to not offer empathy.
Right.
There is this probably experiencing the end of exclusion and strained relationships, maybe even relationship ending.
I was just going to say more than just strained.
Like a lack of, and certainly is not nurturing. And one might say then some relationships might die. Brings in a focus on judgment. And I find for myself that there's so much more negativity and cynicism when I am utilizing this.
Yes. And it goes back to something that we have said so many times on the show, where it's We want to lead with compassion and curiosity, not judgment.
Yeah.
And we say that all the time.
Yeah.
And we're big believers in it. But now it's like, hey, ladies, let's get real here for a second.
Yeah.
There are times you are leading with judgment.
Yes.
And when you are is when people don't align with your values and morals and opinions. A little call out to us for every episode we've ever been like, compassion and curiosity, everybody. We never judge.
Right. So how would you say, Tara, that empathy is influenced by what we consume in the media? How does this content cause us to focus on particular narratives while ignoring others?
Well, if you look at it as a whole, easiest time to ever think about it is like political campaigns and that time of year. But we are all, it depends on the social media things that you feed into, is the perspective and the narrative that you're receiving. So,
right. It's even written that way.
It is.
Literally, the algorithms give us more of what we're seeking.
Yep. And so if you think about that, we are developing more empathy for the people through social media that align with our values, right? We're following people
Such a good
who
point.
align with our morals and values. I'm not going to follow someone on Instagram who completely has different morals and values than me. So I'm increasing my sense of empathy for those who are like-minded, and I'm decreasing my sense of empathy for the people and isolating from the people who I don't align with.
Yeah, well, I think about even who I'm following or friends with on social media are people who I like.
Yes.
My coworkers who I enjoy.
Yes.
My family members who I enjoy. I actually unfollow people who I don't.
Yep.
And so on a very micro scale, even it creates this space of being blasted with sameness.
100%. And which is the opposite of what you and I celebrate all the time, right? It's like we want diversity and different viewpoints and things like that. But when it comes down to it, there is safety and sameness. And we do go back to that, which is not healthy.
Yeah. And in that, maybe hearing about narratives outside of that sameness that aren't even true. Because that's where I said we develop the story without even any information.
Yep.
How do you see selective empathy in media coverage? Even things maybe like charity funding, disaster efforts.
Well, if you look at it, and I'm reading a book for a future episode, and it's taught me so much about, oh my goodness, if you attach things to stereotypes and things we assume about others, certain demographics, whatever it is, it plays out in media coverage no matter where you're living, right?
Absolutely.
It is noticing, wow, what are the stories they're choosing to share with us that pull you in and make you very empathetic versus where the stories that have a negative connotation, look at who majority they're focusing in on as, victim versus perpetrator or whatever it is. They're consistently sending us the same message,
right?
Of like, be empathetic for this person. Don't be empathetic for this person.
Yeah. Well, you bring up such a great point that maybe even today or in the week ahead, listeners could start to just notice where's selective empathy in media coverage.
Yep.
It's everywhere. And we're getting messaging about what ought to have empathy and what ought not to, as you're saying.
Right.
What do you think then is the social and political impact of deciding when to feel empathy and when not to? Like who's owed it, who isn't? It seems like this is maybe why my family member said you need to do a show on selective empathy. Like it would deepen societal divisions hugely.
And I don't think we could have a better example of that than now. Even if you just say the last year.
Yeah.
With everything that's gone on a, nationwide, but also like more of a community base. It has where it is almost the minute we find out, let's say if it's a different political party or viewpoint, when we talk about social and political impact, the minute we find out that they're the other side, it shuts off any motivation to empathize with that person.
Mm-hmm.
So then it goes back to, oh, we've created a narrative for them
Mm-hmm.
and filled in everything. How many of us have actually taken the time to be like, hey, we have different political or, social views, but let's explore. Like, tell me more about it,
Mm-hmm.
leading with curiosity. And I think we 100% eliminate our sense of curiosity.
Yeah. Well, I notice in myself total anger when this happens. So when we talk about
Mhm.
social impact, just on a personal
Yep.
level, um, I think we quit talking to people
I think we do too.
who think differently from us. And this doesn't have to be even on a political spectrum.
Right.
This could literally just be somebody who you don't like that much.
Right.
That we X them out of interaction.
But what does that say about us if that is how we choose to handle it?
Well, this is a kind of a personal call out today
Yeah.
on the show.
It is. We are definitely it's causing us to be reflective as well.
Yeah, well, I wanted to think about on that,
Mhm.
how do life experiences cause us to consciously or subconsciously select who we empathize with?
Right.
And so we're going to do a little scenario
Yep.
call out here that there are many different experiences that shape how we see other people. Often that's our own story. And as you and I have been saying, a lot of what our morals and beliefs are, the way in which we see the world is going to shape how we see other people. And so we're going to focus our list on the lesser side of intensity
Mhm.
for our examples today, knowing that the vastness of selective empathy
Right.
can get very intense.
Very intense. Full
Um,
spectrum of
but we're
things.
choosing things that are smaller daily life examples just to show how challenging it can be or how impacted we are and who it's easy to show empathy to. So, first example here, your negative coworker who always has something to say about everyone behind their backs hosted a party for folks at work and most people said they couldn't attend. This coworker comes to you to talk about it.
Mm.
So Tara, what would you do? And how does this impact? How do you see this impacting selective empathy?
Well, I think for a lot of people, the first thing we'd want to say to this person is, no kidding,
Right.
right? But that is not leading with empathy, but that's leading with judgment.
That's leading with judgment.
So I think in this scenario, we've torn off we've gotten rid of empathy, shut that down. We're going to lead with judgment.
Mhm.
Um,
And maybe even blame. When we talked a
well,
few minutes
it's
ago,
their fault. They're so unpleasant.
we might even say, I kind of love nobody showed up.
Right. And you created
Yes.
this sad, sad party that no one's going to come to
Right.
is a result of your behavior.
Right. And we probably all know someone like this in
Yes.
our lives where we're maybe even kind of secretly rooting for that thing to happen, or we say, you did this.
Right.
And when they come to us to process it, empathy is not there.
No.
Or is going to be much more challenging for us to seek and offer.
Mhm.
The second example, your neighbor has political signs all over their yard for a political party you most definitely do not agree with.
Mm.
And I would guess that our listeners have experiences like this. And it could be neighbor, it could be a coworker too.
Oh, all the time.
But something that incites in you a feel that is going to be very challenging to offer empathy to that neighbor who then, what we didn't go on in the scenario was say, they want help putting something up in their yard.
Right.
Or they have a family get together and they want to come over and tell you, hey, it might be a little bit loud because we
Yes.
have some people coming over. Thoughts about this, Tara?
Well, and I think this is one that so many people can relate to, right? Because we're all part of a neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the beauty of neighborhoods is we have people with different values and beliefs and things like that, but very hard when it's like so in your face.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes you want to lead with judgment.
And maybe even write a story about what that person believes or thinks based on what they're displaying in their yard.
100%. And we fill in the pieces about every aspect of their life without even asking them and leading with curiosity.
Yes.
It is, I have a quick story about this exact thing. I put out a flag in my front yard and I was so excited about it.
Mm.
I just loved it. It was beautiful. I'd ordered it from this amazing artist. I thought it was so welcoming and all the things, and was new to the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And I assumed, duh, everyone's going to love this because it's so welcoming.
Sure.
You know, I think it said, we're all loved, or you are loved. And a new neighbor came over, and I thought he was going to compliment because I just put it up.
Okay.
And the neighbor said, "Ooh, looks like you're here to ruffle some feathers." And
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, "Oh, okay. They're leading with judgment,
Yeah.
but you know what? I am too now."
Great example.
Because the minute he said that,
Yeah.
I completely shut down
Yeah.
and I filled in so many blanks
Yeah.
about, wow, if we view that issue differently, there's no way we can be friends.
Mm-hmm.
And can just assume how you would handle any other situation.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I don't even like you.
Right.
Yes. What a great example of how selective empathy on both sides.
Mhm.
Both sides. So another example, you're a manager of a team. And maybe listeners, you are literally this. Someone on your team had their car damaged by hail and said they won't be able to complete a project that you asked them to because they're too stressed by their current life circumstances. Just 6 months ago, you had the same thing happen with your car and never asked for help from anyone.
Oh, I even feel the tone you just said
Yeah.
that in. I could feel it.
And when that person on your team comes to you,
Mhm.
I think we can all think about, wow, this would be really hard to offer them empathy because of your own story.
Right.
And this recognition of who I am is a compilation of my life experiences.
Mhm.
Those life experiences are going to inform what I believe, what I think about things, certainly what I value, as we're saying over and over again. And so that is going to come into that moment.
It is going to come into moment. And what else comes into that moment is that we're not recognizing the fact that this person, due to life experiences, may not have the coping skills and strategies
Right.
that we possess. So it's all about perspective taking, could have rocked their world.
Right.
So to them, this is the most stressful thing that's happened. To us, it is not. But in addition to that, it's like that doesn't matter. We're leading with judgment.
Right. And empathy is this idea of, I'm going to try to see it the way that you see it.
Right.
I'm going to try to understand and perceive how you're viewing something and suspend the experience for me right now. That is empathy.
Well, because we aren't comparing. This is not a competition.
Yep. Okay, so you're at the grocery store and you see a parent struggling to get bags packed with their kids actively crying. You remember those exact moments for yourself.
Mm.
And I purposefully used this example because I wanted to highlight something that might be easy for us to
Right.
offer empathy. And or if you came from a spot, I left this vague intentionally, if you came from a spot of nobody helped you at the grocery store,
Mm.
that might be a space of judgment
Well, yeah.
where you're seeing someone and saying, well, I had to get it together. You better get it together. So we could go both sides with this example.
100%. 100%. The other side of it is you remember vividly what it's like the example states.
Mm-hmm.
And so all you have is empathy oozing out of you in that, here, let me help you.
Yep.
Right. And even if you don't say, let me help you, or what can I do to help you, it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's present. And the way we handle just being in that line all of a sudden changes.
Right. Yeah. Next example. A child comes to talk to you about having no friends at school. You were the one at school who was left out growing up. And it's another good example of, so very similar to the grocery store, that what you have experienced is going to inform the way in which you're going to perceive that moment. And what you and I are asking people to do is be kind to yourself about that.
Yes.
Know that story and how that's going to show up in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then say, but this moment is not necessarily about only my perspective.
Right.
it is about the other person's or other people's as well.
Yep. Important to acknowledge, right, that you have that strong connection, but then also acknowledging like, whoa, I need to take a step back and breathe, because my life experience is greatly going to impact what I share or how I problem solve or how I process this with this kid. Because if you just take your experience, then automatic we have good guys, bad guys. Right. And then we have shut off any empathy for anyone outside of this individual.
Right. And the right way to do something and the wrong way to do something, and the right way to perceive it and the wrong way to perceive it. That the more that we can own our story and know the experiences that have made us us, the more we can start to say, and that's not the only story. There's thousands of them, millions of them.
There are.
And I'm not negating mine by seeing yours.
Right.
They both can exist in duality.
We love our duality.
Even if they're not even like sort of close to the same.
Right.
So last example, you hear a sad news story about a community that recently took massive action against a social issue you support deeply. And I think this is happening all the time.
All the time.
We are seeing either news stories locally, nationally, even internationally, that people are taking action against something that we hold very deeply. And we might not know the humans personally, but I notice in myself an active, like immediate feel.
Well, there's like a visceral response. Like just reading that, I was like, oh my goodness. And it is just that notion of when it's that whole community, we don't see the other side of it.
Yeah.
There's just no acknowledgement or desire to see the other side. But this also plays into something you said earlier about the use of news and social media, because how you view that exact story, that news story about the community, will depend on how it's fed to you.
It comes back to that, yes. And which perception did you see of that thing? Yes. Which truth was there?
Right.
We asked our coworkers also about blockers to empathy and things that would prevent us from caring about people. I thought that people might resonate with some of the things that we chatted about
for sure
with our coworkers. Being overwhelmed. So things that block our ability to be empathic, being overwhelmed, fear, defensiveness, avoidance, stress.
Yes.
Lack of empathy for ourselves.
Which I think that's such a important one right there.
I think that's huge. When we may be replaying, people didn't have empathy for us, and so I didn't learn how to have empathy for me. So that lack of empathy for ourselves, judgment, as we've talked a ton about, criticality, scarcity thinking around energy. Like we only have so much. So we need to reserve it for things that really matter to us.
Which I think is so common.
I definitely do too.
Yeah.
The idea that people are harming other people right now and reminding us of people we don't like.
Yes. Yes.
Or people we have feelings about.
Right. Strong feelings about.
Yes.
One way or the other.
And in that lack of empathy for ourselves, that maybe we feel like we've been wronged by others in our lives, and that hurt makes us feel like we don't want to offer it to people.
Well, and I think some of these things, the list that you just gave, again, it provides that easy out to not have empathy. One I want to add is that idea of we may not, due to life circumstances, have the capacity to even like true capacity to even be empathetic in the moment, because we just don't for whatever reason. But if that's the case, or if one of these is the case, it's important to go, okay, well, when the time comes, when I have more capacity, I need to remind myself what's so important, as in I need to get back on that.
Yep.
And then recognize and activate that empathy.
Yeah, because certainly there are times, and you and I said, we are not going to have empathy 100% of the time.
Right.
And there definitely are times where we say, my energy needs to be reserved for this person and not for this person. And that might be actually true.
Yep.
But we, as you pointed out beautifully, we can come back to that too.
Yes.
We can reflect on it later.
Yep.
An example of this for me, you shared a beautiful story that happened to you. Mine's throwback, long time ago, childhood.
Oh, I love story.
I'm in this is elementary school, Becky.
Okay.
And I walked into a group of boys bullying someone in my class, and this was off of school grounds. I was walking home.
Okay.
They were trying to put him in a garbage can, and the boy in my class was routinely picked on. I often felt empathy for his experience, but this particular day I was walking home from school off the grounds. I saw this whole thing happening. I jumped in immediately and started yelling at this group of kids.
Of course you did.
All of whom were older than me, to let him go. I told them to get him out of the garbage can and that I was going to walk him home. And amazingly, I'll make the story short here. To my surprise, they listened to me.
They did?
Yes. But while getting out of the trash can, the boy in my class had taken a bottle and hit one of the other boys with it. He was definitely impacted by the hit.
Oh.
But I knew this kid, like this whole group of boys. I didn't like any of them. There was no empathy offered to him. None. I walked the boy home from my class all the way to his house. And I think at the time I didn't have any space in my heart for what that boy's story was.
Right.
The bully.
Yeah.
I identified so much with someone needing to be helped. And I'm using that as an example.
Such a good example.
Of sometimes we reserve it for someone, but I know in my life right now, that kid had a story as well.
He did have a story. There's something that brought him to that point.
When we think about overcoming selective empathy, and maybe even if we want to use a different word than overcoming, living with it, recognizing that it exists, self-reflection, examining your own biases. Think about the last time you had a discussion with someone who thought or lived differently from you. Just think about it, listeners. Consider your assumptions on what makes someone worthy of empathy. And I want you to think about it in this next week. What makes someone worthy of empathy?
I think that's such a huge and big concept because people don't think about that.
Yes. What makes someone deserving of it?
Right.
Make your world bigger. Seek out a new experience outside of something familiar to you. That always helps with empathy. We're starting to see something outside of our perspective. Actively listen. So when someone brings something different than what you think or how you see things, notice your reactions and your interest in coming up with something to say in response. Like, what is immediately you're wanting to say something while they're talking versus hearing them and absorbing what they're saying. Think about empathy less as a spotlight, focusing on familiar people and experiences, and more as a universal concept. And
that right there.
Practice empathy for someone you find challenging. This is like the test of tests.
Because
and I'm not saying intense or challenging at a 10.
Right.
I'm saying like practice empathy for someone who's annoying to you or whose beliefs are different from yours. And ask yourself, okay, well, what would it take to give them empathy? What would make them worthy of empathy? And this thing that's annoying me about them, what's one way to see it from their view?
Right. That's radical empathy.
What are your thoughts, Tara?
Well, we all need to do that and practice. My biggest takeaway from that is when you said, and I never thought about it until now, the active listening piece of when we are listening to someone who thinks otherwise about something, how our active listening skills actually just completely go away. And all we do is move to listening.
Yeah.
And maybe just hearing.
Not even absorbing.
Right. Maybe just hearing. Where on the flip side, when someone who aligns with your values and morals and things like that, and they're sharing their struggle, active listening, I'm using it as at its finest. How sad though to recognize like, wow, we should be doing the opposite in that we should be leading with more curiosity for the other person and not just shutting down, because what are we gaining? How's that serving us by just shutting down and hearing the person?
Yeah. Right. And maybe even actively trying to change the subject. It makes me think about...
but then they're just so invalidated.
Right. It makes me think about the responsibility we might have to extend empathy beyond our personal circle.
Yes.
So interesting here. Tons to think about. We're headed to a commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to talk through questions from all of you, our listeners. Feels Out Loud will process your thoughts in just a moment.
From nobody else. All you got to do now. Nothing to lose. In a world full of strangers, you don't know that's right. All you see is danger, trying to find what you lost.
We are back again with Feels Out Loud, and this part of the show is where we talk through questions from you all, our beautiful listeners. If you have a question related to mental wellness, sharing feelings, or our topics for each week that you would like us to process through, please visit our website at becomingtogethermn.com and find the Feels Out Loud page to submit a question directly. Or email us at contact@becomingtogethermn.com. Of course, follow us on social media as well. We really do want to hear from you and what you are wondering about.
And thank you, everyone who asked us some things about selective empathy. We had people who shared comments. We had people who shared some life experiences about it. We picked kind of a comboed question statement. This listener says, I feel like people around me care about who they care about. That's it. And pretty much they seem to be okay with that. I don't even know how to address that. Are we all just apathetic? Are we just self-centered? And we only want to be around people like us? So there was a question in there.
Yes.
But I think there was a statement.
A strong
as well.
statement.
What would you say, Tara?
I think the statement was super profound in that it kind of calls out all of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that I feel like people around, me care about who they care about. And they have, for whatever reason, they do that. That there, though, which is such, I think, a common mentality is, well, there's no room for growth then, right? They care who they care about. Let's not analyze it. But if we took it a step further and was like, okay, wow, we do that, right? But what does it look like to actually take a step and do something about it?
Right. Yeah, because you and I sort of mentioned through the show, perhaps we could start to notice in our world how selective empathy is present around us, but in ourselves. We have huge control over our own responses.
Right.
We don't necessarily have control over how other people show up to something, but we might be apathetic. We are bombarded with terrible messaging all the time. And you and I have done a show on apathy and how that can actually be a result of too much empathy.
For sure.
Our need to disconnect and detach, to be sort of numb, isn't only from a space of uncaring. It's can be from a space of so much caring. It's too intense.
Right.
It's too much feeling.
So they're doing it to survive.
So it might be a self-protective factor that yes, we may be apathetic and only have really a space to care about what we care about. But I love what you're saying on that. Doesn't mean we need to stay there.
Right. We don't have to stay there, even though it's scary and uncomfortable. Like there's beauty in discomfort.
That we can practice empathy and build this muscle in even small circumstances. And I think one way to do it is the toss back to what we just said a few minutes ago on, well, how do we notice selective empathy in our own lives? And what are the ways that are super simple?
Yes.
Taking our tiny spaces of annoyance, even some of the examples that we gave, the situations, the coworker who is the negative human,
right,
or the person who sits next to you who you really wish didn't say anything ever. What's a way to find empathy for them? That is building the muscle.
I love that.
And to this listener who's saying, well, people around me only care about what they care about, you could pick something different.
Yes, you could. Yes, you could. And it's a challenge to everybody, including us, of what is that one thing you can do to be less selective in your empathy? And maybe act on that in this next week.
Yeah, and we just started to kind of tap the waters on examine your biases. But that is a huge part of even something that you deeply value.
Yes.
A very significantly held value. And how does that show up in exactly what you just said? Who's going to be easy to offer empathy to, and who's going to be challenging to offer empathy to? Because that is going to be present.
It is. And so go to that person that it's going to be challenging to and take one step toward less empathy or selective empathy.
Thank you for listening, everyone, this morning. Join us next week as we process through more mental health focused topics. And in the week ahead, be kind to yourself. Remember that connection fosters wellness, and your voice is one that the world around you needs to hear. Share yourselves, friends.
Some do, some don't, some will, some won't. I wanna feel just to